much to everyone's surprise, including my own, I raised my hand, said, I'll try that. And that put a charge into our table. I've got to tell you, everyone thought that I was going to be put on fire in front of the crowd, especially, since I have this growth here. Anyway, I'm happy to report that it went swimmingly and I did swallow fire and I did live to tell about it.
Do you ever feel like you're so busy leading your business that you're missing out on the people who matter the most? Today, we are sitting down with Paul Partridge. Paul is a writer, photographer, and family travel expert whose work has been featured in Forbes and The Washington Post. For over 25 years, he's been designing global travel experiences that bring people back together. Today, he's showing us how to step away from the daily grind and reclaim what he calls the gift of time together. Before we dive into that, did you know that we have a free community of spirit-led leaders just like you? Head over to authenticvoiceleadership.com right now to join the conversation and grab all of the exclusive resources from today's guest expert. All right, Paul, welcome to the show. Well, I'm so excited to have you on Authentic Voice Leadership, Paul. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks.
Do you want to just dive right in and tell us a little bit about why you got into the work that you do?
Yeah, so I tend to focus on group travel, and I think it's because, from my perspective, those are the moments that tend to matter most. So whether it's family reunions or milestone birthdays or anniversaries or trips with your college buddies or whatever, it's just when I have free time, that's really all I think about is how do I get together again with those folks. And I would say it's also what I know best, So for the last 25 years, I've been organizing these kinds of trips for families and friends. So I've seen firsthand what works, what doesn't. And I think the number one thing I realized that it's not about the place or the destination. It's really about having the chance to be together in a way that doesn't happen often enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not just planning trips. I think about it as designing time together in an amazing place, hopefully with some unforgettable experiences thrown in and, try to make it feel natural and unforced, right? So I think it's let people think about me as a travel planner or advisor or whatever, but I think it's more about creating the conditions for meaningful time together.
I love that so much. And because I've met you and because we've talked before this podcast, and I'm so impressed with your life's work and what you've done and what you're doing now, I'm going to go a
Thanks.
little off script.
Yeah, okay.
I would love for you to tell a little bit about like the story and your journey on how you got here, because we were talking before about your background, if you're willing, your background in the advertising arena and how the rat race of it all and where you came to be like, I just want this connection and I just want to walk forward into something very much enjoy. And because our audience is business owners, I think that journey is so valuable to hear. Would you be willing to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. We can talk about it. I was in the advertising world for a number of years. I worked on Madison Avenue in New York, which is kind of sort of the epicenter or the mecca for some folks' way of thinking. And I've done a number of things, but it's funny. Whenever I had downtime, when I wasn't working, I was always thinking about what's the next trip are we going on.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, so I had a business that I ended up selling. And then I thought, well, what are we going to do next? It was, hey, why don't we do that thing that we always thought about doing when we were working? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had been doing, obviously, our family have been taking these kind of trips for many years. Luckily, we've been very, very blessed. But, I started doing it for friends. They were hearing about our trips and saying, hey, can you do it? And I thought, whenever I go somewhere, I think you're like this too. If I go somewhere and I have a fun experience or something that I wasn't expecting or was really a big wow, like the first thing I think of is who else can I share this with? Who else can I show this to? And that was kind of the impetus of a lot of the trips. And then we started sending people, and they came back with stories that were even better than ours.
Oh, that's
So that's
awesome.
kind of how it started. I'm trying to, that same kind of connection and wow and wonder moments that I have. I'm trying to just share that with other folks. That's what I really want for people.
That's awesome. And so like you've spent all this time traveling. You spent so much time in the rat race and you did so good about getting away to the trips. Not everybody does that super well. People will get into the zone and then forget to
Yeah.
enjoy life in the midst of all of it. And I know that as you've spent so much time in your life writing, doing photography, doing all of these things that make you who you are. And while you're so uniquely positioned to help people find these connection points, what did you start noticing about the things that people remember when they went on these trips?
Yeah. I think the thing that really started to hit for me, Leslie, is that most people plan trips the same way, which is okay, let's pick a destination, find a hotel, and then just try to build everything around it, catch as catch can. And at some point, I realized, this approach is backwards. The trips that people remember the most and cherish the most, they don't start with the place, they start with the people. Who we're going with. Why are we coming together? What would make this time feel meaningful and special? And, the moments that people talk about years later when they're, sitting around at Thanksgiving, it's not about where they were per se. It's about what happened, who they were there with, how it felt. And, these days to have a moment where you feel fully present, whether you're with your friends or with your family or with, three generations or whatever. But, that laughing and connecting and discovering something new together, that's what stays with you. Yeah. And I think, in a very real way, that's what people are looking for when they travel, but it's not really the way travel is marketed.
Mm.
People want to feel connected. They want to feel more present. They want to be happier, in that
Mhm.
deeper sense. But there's no planning around that. And if you don't plan for it, you're basically, it's kind of potluck, and it might work sometimes and it might not. And it's so these time that we have with each other are so few that, why don't we just try to get it right?
Right, right. I love that. We as a people, we are just like craving connection because we live in such a digital world. And
Mm.
as entrepreneurs and leaders in our space, we're relied on a lot. And I think it was a few weeks ago, and it might even been you I was talking to. I planned myself into a corner, and everything worked out in my schedule just so that I missed the partnerships that I had for that week, and I had them scheduled for the week after, and they both had it scheduled the week before. And I was like, how did I miscommunicate this? And so as I looked back and I put everybody into the same week, and then all of a sudden I had a free week, I realized I haven't given myself a break. I haven't
Yeah.
taken the time to just like step back and breathe. And I have a partnership
Mhm.
every single week. I have work every single week. And when I work for someone else, my breaks are built in. At the
Yeah.
school, when I was teaching at the high school, you'd have summer off, you have spring break, your breaks are built in, you can plan around it. But
Yeah.
working for yourself, you often can just get into the grind and forget that you need to plan some vacations and plan some time off and plan some time to get grounded and reconnect to who you are and what the purpose in life is. Even just we can get mixed up in it. So I
Yeah.
think about that and what you do and how we plan trips in order to get out of our scenery, get into a new place, and even get to know the people we know best better. So, what do you have to say more in that area of connecting with those kind of experiences?
Yeah. Travel is the great getaway. And I agree. I don't know that we all do it enough, but it's kind of how, I guess, for me, it's how it's being done. It's how the way travel is presented to us. I don't think people are doing anything wrong. I just think they don't know another way. Right. So when you look at travel, how travel is presented to us, it's what are the top destinations? Where's everybody going this year, And what are the best hotels and what are the must-see lists? What's my checklist or whatever, right? So that's kind of, just natural how people plan. And then before you know it, the trip is more about the logistics, where to go, what to see, and how to, cram everything in. We've only got 5 days here in Paris. How are we going to cram these, 27 things in? And meanwhile, I think, generally in our crazy busy lives, what we really want is time together. We want to slow down, not speed up. We want to, reconnect and just be around the people that we care about. And, I have this thing where sometimes when we go away, we all will take votes on what, everyone wants to do. And sometimes my answer is, I want to be bored.
Tell me more about wanting to be bored.
Yeah. Because, I can't remember the last time I was bored because, these days there's just so many things that's pressing for our attention. Like we never have time to be bored. We never have that downtime. And it gets hyper crazy when we go away because we feel like, oh gosh, this might be my only chance to see Tuscany, right? Or whatever it is. And, we've got to cram it all in. And I think to me, that's a recipe for forgetting everything rather than, if you just have a chance to breathe in, breathe out, and maybe be bored a little, it's going to sink in what the place, feels like, smells like, tastes like, and kind of stays with you a little bit longer.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you have any like exciting stories from some of the trips that you've taken or anything that like happened that was out of the ordinary that just you're still laughing about as a family?
Well, yeah, a zillion of them. There's a couple of them that popped into mind when you said that. But as a family, we were in St. Lucia one time and at dinner they had one of these, fire eating people. They would like, they would put like, I don't know, it was swords or sticks or whatever on fire and you know, they would eat the fire. I'm sure you've seen it
I
on
think on
TV.
TV, not in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Well, it was the first time I had seen it in person as well. We were out there with my girls and and some other friends. And anyway, the man who was the performer, he was amazing. At one point, he said, "I'd like to have a volunteer from the audience to try this." And much to everyone's surprise, including my own, I raised my hand, said, "I'll try that." And that put a charge into our table. I've got to tell you, everyone thought that I was going to be put on fire in front of the crowd, especially, since I have this growth here. Anyway, I'm happy to report that it went swimmingly and I did swallow fire and I did live to tell about it.
Oh my goodness. You've got to dig into that just a little bit more. You swallowed fire. Did it
Yeah.
burn? Was there like what did
You
you was there
know,
any preparation that you had to do?
well, he pulled me aside and gave me like a couple of little pointers, mainly which was, don't worry, I've got you covered. And he talked about, like trying to open up your throat a little bit. And actually the sensation, well, you can feel the heat, right? So fire next to your face, that was one sensation that you don't feel every day. So that was one. The thing that I remember from it, other than the look of horror on everybody at our table, family and friends, was the taste because, they dipped I forget if it was a sword or a skewer or whatever it was, they dip it in, I think it's kerosene,
Ooh.
you know, because that's how they, light it up real quick. And I remember the taste of the kerosene. Uh, that's kind of what I remember about it before I blacked out.
That's amazing. I bet y'all are still talking about that one.
Yeah, so that's one for sure. And yeah, I mean, we have a zillion of them. Just trying to think of another one. We were down in the Galapagos, and that was really nice. And what I remember from that was getting to swim with some sea lions,
Oh.
and that was yeah, that was pretty incredible. One of them came. I had the goggles on, and
Uh-huh.
one of them swam right up to my face, and I swear it was like laughing or smiling. And then darted off, immediately went over to where my wife was swimming. She was on her stomach, because she had snorkel, and
Uh-huh.
she was, looking in the water from the top, and that the sea lion jumped right over her as if he was performing in SeaWorld. He just
Uh-huh.
leapt right out of the water, right over her, and I just remember everyone on the beach that was watching, they just burst into applause,
Did it
we
scare
looked.
her?
No, because she didn't know what was happening, because she was just, she was swimming along, and he just came and jumped over her body, and she was none the wiser. But, you know, I just jumped out of the water and looked at, some of the folks at the beach, and I was thinking, wait, did that just happen? It was just one of those moments. It was just, surprise and pure joy, and your mouth is just hanging open in awe. And I mean, that's again going back to my first thought was, who can I share this with? Who can I
Right.
bring? Who can I bring here? Or who can I help plan a trip around this? Because everybody should have that experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So, you have a resource for people who are wanting to get away and reconnect with their family and to make this a gift of travel and to be together as a family, make those deep connections. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's about?
yeah, yeah. So it's called the gift of time together, and that's kind of that's what all our trips are about, and we're trying to help people, spend more time together and do it in a extraordinary place in a beautiful private home. And the guide is just a short little guide, and it's 3 steps about how to give the gift of time together in a really meaningful way. And yeah, I'm happy to share with the audience.
That's beautiful. Now, tell me a little bit about why you choose to make this connection point in other places other than just having a movie night or family game night, or the difference between like getting away together and just spending some quality time right here at home.
Yeah, and I don't think one necessarily replaces the other. But when I was a kid, I grew up in New England, and my dad, always had the same 2 weeks, and we'd get in the car and we'd drive to Cape Cod, which is about an hour and a half from where we lived, and that was our thing, for my whole childhood. And it was funny because it just takes on a different. There's a different level, I think, of connection. If you're when you're around home or you're watching a movie, it's great. Or you're going to the park together, it's great, riding bikes. When you're somewhere that you haven't been or you don't know, you all get to discover it together. So when you share an experience together, you don't really think about it, but it actually is creating a stronger bond.
That's good.
You have a shared memory, number one, but there's just also that thing of like, remember when from that point on, you can say that. Remember when we did that? Remember when we had that thing happen to us? And it's not about, let's spend a lot of money. We were on a trip, and the thing that I noticed, we went to Greece. We were in an island called Paros. We stayed in an amazing place. The home was absolutely drop dead beautiful. And it came with, we didn't, so to speak, order this. The home just came with a chef, which was, if you rented the home, the chef just came with it. And so, we didn't say no to that. We said,
Right.
this is pretty great. Right. And, over the course of the week, we got to really know the chef. He was wonderful. And, I don't know, did we like him more than he liked us? I don't know. It doesn't matter. We all just got along wonderfully. And by the end of the week, he said, before you go, I'd really love to show you where I live. He lives in a farm. He had a family farm. He said, would you be open to coming to visit my farm? And of course, we all said, of course, we would love that. Let's go right now. And so he took us to the farm. We spent, you know, I don't know, a better part of the day on his farm. And of course, he had chickens and he had dogs and he had, pigs and he had, a huge garden, and he had a well. We were drinking from the well water. And he had fruit trees, and he just was so proud to like show us around. It was, it wasn't on any checklist. It wasn't on any, Google list of these are the 10 things you should do in Paros. It was, spontaneous and unscripted and really, amazing. And I see in the years since it's, when we talk about that trip, that's the thing that everybody talks about.
That's awesome. I love
And
that so much. The stories that you bring home after you've connected as a family. I can remember I probably shouldn't tell this on a podcast, but I have a hilarious story.
I love it already.
So I lived in England for a certain period of time, and oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't tell this on a podcast, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
It can, just between us.
It's just between us. But my sister came to visit when I was living in England, and we wanted to travel around the countryside some more. And so, being that we're from the South, we just, this was all new terrain for us. There was so much to see, so much to do. And she was there on a trip with her chorus from high school. So they went like on a school trip. And I was there because my husband and he was military, and we were there on a military assignment. And I had all our passports and all the things. We were all good to go. And then I was pregnant with my 21-year-old son at the time. So this was a long time ago. And we met up and decided we were going to go take the train to Paris and spend the day in Paris. So it was a day trip, early morning train ride over, late night train ride back. And my sister and I are almost identical. We are not twins, but you would think that we might be if you didn't know us very well. We look so much alike. And we get to the line, we get to the train station, we're standing in line on our way to Paris, and I realized that I had left my passport at home. Bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, we have this amazing story in our back pocket because my sister and I look so much alike. She went through the line, slipped a couple people back, handed me her passport, and I got right through the country with her passport.
That's so good.
And we spent the day in Paris, and I was scared to death I wasn't going to be able to get home.
Yeah.
I get on the other side, and we did it again. I got back home. I don't think you could get away with that these days, and that's probably an illegal thing to talk about, but that I snuck into another country on my sister's passport. But
statute of limitations, I think, is over.
Yes. It was like 21 years ago almost, because I was pregnant with my 21-year-old. So it was a long time ago, but it's a story that we laugh about still. Like, how in the world how do I sneak into another country?
That is good. Yeah, you're very unique. There's not many people that could ever do that.
But
That's
I just
great.
remember those connections that we made, and the laughs about it, and the fear around it.
Yeah.
It was almost like nervous laughter. Oh my gosh, did we actually just get away with that? And how in the world did that happen? And we still talk about it 20 years later. So
I can see why. I mean, that's amazing. I love it.
Oh goodness. So tell me, what's the difference? Like when someone's traveling together and just making it memorable versus making it meaningful. And so that those connections are things that last. Like you have these stories, I have these stories. And when we come back, they're conversation points, and we want to talk about those things. And how do you see that being the difference between just meaningful or just memorable, or both?
Yeah, so I would say a couple things. One is that I would say that a nice trip checks the boxes. There's probably a pretty place that you're visiting. It's a nice hotel, maybe good food, and you enjoy it, but it doesn't really stay with you. And we have a little test that we kind of give to all trips. We call it the 5-year test, and it's, what are you talking about 5 years later? And the trips that you end up talking about 5 years later tend to do a couple things well. Number one is they bring people closer, and they create moments that make you feel something. That's the key thing, is feel. And our brains are wired, more to feelings than to anything else. And so we're thinking about that, and we actually tried to figure out how to kind of quantify that a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So we came up with this thing. We have two little measurements. One's called a connection quotient, and the other one's called a meaning meter. And I know that that sounds a little bit technical or nerdy, but it's really just a way of asking, how naturally does time together happen throughout the day? So, does the experience create moments that people will actually remember and talk about like 5 years later? And yeah, we found it's a helpful way to look at trips. We go into it a bit deeper on the website in terms of how we figure out the numbers and everything behind it. And, anybody that wants to visit us at travelvillaguide.com, they can find out more information about that there.
That's awesome. Well, I would love to hear anything else you have to say about these experiences and how that gets you in touch with the alignment of your inner voice and your outer expression so that we are fully aligned in our most authentic selves and that we are radiant leaders and how our experiences are part of who we are and they become part of us. They become part of the way we present ourselves to the world. And can you talk to that just a little bit before we go?
Yeah, and I think this is something that really I don't see get talked about so much, but when you have a one-on-one with people and you ask about it, I think people are feeling this same way. Life gets busy and people are in different places. They have different routines. They're pulled in a lot of different directions. And it's surprisingly hard to find time where everyone's just together, not rushed, not distracted, not on their phones, just present. And when that does happen, when you can create the conditions that allow that to happen, I think something shifts inside of us and you get to have conversations that you normally wouldn't have. You laugh, you share moments that you didn't necessarily plan. And that's the thing that kind of sticks in our noggin,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, it's that, what do the experiences make us feel? It gets back to that word feel. You feel more connected, you feel more like yourself, you feel happier. That kind of is the framework for our thinking of the gift of time together.
That's good. I sometimes think of it like when you look at your personality types and all that kind of stuff. I'm a pretty driven personality, but I also really value adventure. Like it's one of my core values is adventure. And so I think about, all work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy. Well, it's the same for all of us, right? So if we just work all the time and we're always in survival mode, then we're not giving our nervous system the reset to know that we are actually safe in this world. And when we can take a step back and give our nervous systems a break and get out of survival mode, and it's almost like I think we've talked about it before where you say there's a pattern interrupt there. And that pattern interrupt is on a life level, on a nervous system level. And so when we get out of our normal environments to go on an adventure, whether that's taking a hike out in nature, whether it's getting on a plane and going to some exotic place. I think that gives our nervous systems the space to reset a little bit and we can get in touch with the fun part of ourselves again. And I know for me personally, that's really important for my family so that I'm not this really driven, stressed out, survival mode mom all the time. Instead, I'm more grounded and able to connect and have these experiences with my kids that we can take with us into the future. So,
Yeah. I think also the other, I think is perspective, Leslie, because,
mhm,
when you go to different places and, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be Rio de Janeiro. If
right.
you go to another place, it can just be another state, right? You see, hey, you know what? People live differently. And, there's a lot of people out there that do have a kind of a more calm and less stressful, I would say, existence than we tend to have.
Mhm.
And that's really inspiring when you see that. You think, oh, wow, it's really possible.
I
It's
love
really
that.
possible to do this.
I love it.
And, you see, and you find out, these are people that live to 100 too,
Mm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard about that like down in the islands. I had a student the other day talking to me about he's from Colombia and he was telling me he missed Colombia because they had an unhealthy lifestyle too. They drank, they partied, they ate things they weren't supposed to eat, but they lived long lives because they didn't have the stress levels. It was island life. They enjoyed their fast cars and their afternoon naps
Yeah.
and friends of ours that live in Puerto Rico for the same thing, the island life. It's just a different pace, and I think that that is something very valuable that we can learn and take with us from things that people do in other cultures that are maybe even healthier than how we do it and gives us another paradigm to live from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I agree.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, Paul, I have super enjoyed spending some time with you this afternoon talking about all the things that we can do to connect and step outside of our normal. And I am so grateful that you took the time to chat with me today.
Yeah. Well, I loved it. I would just say one thing I didn't close the loop on. We
Yes,
mentioned
please.
the guide, and I don't
Hmm.
know that I gave away if people actually do want to see it to get it. And it's pretty simple. It's just the word gift dot travelvillaguide.com. That's where they can go and get that for free if that's something they're interested in.
That sounds wonderful. And I'll have it in the
Yeah.
show notes too, so that
Oh,
everybody
nice.
can, that is interested in looking at this gift of not just gift of travel, but the gift of a reset of our nervous system and the gift of connection, the gift of connecting with ourself again and the people around us that we care about most, and connecting with people outside of our circle too. I think that's really important.
Yeah. 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 Time together is what it's, I mean, just more people I meet, the more I hear is the same thing. Just
Mm.
what do you really want? Well, you can't get time, right? You can buy a lot of things, but you can't buy time.
Amen. That's so
Yeah.
good. That's so good. It's our one renewable resource.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I enjoyed it. I really didn't think I'd be talking about swallowing fire, but I'm glad we did. And I'm glad I heard about how to get across the border if I don't have my passport. It's good. Just have to find a twin. That's all.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's fun times. You can have so many fun stories when you talk about places you've been and experiences you've had. It's really fun.
Yeah. It's the best.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie.
Hey, Radiant Leader, to dive deeper into our resources and connect with a powerhouse circle of like-minded leaders, come join our free community right now over at authenticvoiceleadership.com. I will meet you right back here next Tuesday. Your voice matters. Lead wild, lead free. Stay radiant, my friend.